Today, let us talk about energy changes in physical and chemical processes. That is, what will focus so much into endothermic and exothermic reactions. So, what is enthalpy? This simply means heat content. And is abbreviated or denoted by the letter H. Very often, chemical reactions are accompanied by changes in heat content of substances which are reacting. It is not possible to determine change in heat content experimentally. However, changes in heat content lead to changes in temperature, and the changes in temperature can now be used to determine change in the heat content. A reaction in which heat is absorbed. We can have reactions where heat is absorbed or heat released. So the one where heat is absorbed is known as endothermic reaction. While a reaction in which heat is evolved or released is known as exothermic reaction. For exothermic reaction, the surrounding gains heat, hence final temperature higher than the initial temperature. The heat is lost to the surrounding, meaning it is the surrounding that gains heat. So that brings a story whereby the final temperature has to be higher than the initial temperature. For endothermic reactions, heat is absorbed, just like we have said, from the surrounding, hence initial temperature higher than final temperature. Heat is absorbed. From the story of heat absorbed, and that's where we realize that there is that difference in the temperature. For endothermic reactions, we have said heat is absorbed from the surrounding, and for exothermic, heat is lost to the surrounding or simply released. In reactions, the amount of heat can be either absorbed or evolved, and such reactions are referred to as heat of reaction. That amount of heat that amount of heat that is either absorbed or evolved is what we call heat of the reaction, or simply heat of reaction. Note that when 1 mole of a substance is involved in a reaction, then this amount of heat is either absorbed or released, is what we call molar heat of reaction. This is when now a given 1 mole of a substance is evolved in heat reaction, meaning it can either undergo exothermic reaction or endothermic reaction. So when that is evolved is what we call now molar heat of reaction. The heat of a reaction is determined by getting the difference between the heat content of the product and that of the reactants. In other words, heat of reaction is the heat content change. And we said heat content is enthalpy. Therefore, is what we call enthalpy change. Now, we are saying that enthalpy change is simply the difference between heat content of the product and that of the reactant. Of the products and reactants. That is what we call the enthalpy change, and is denoted by delta H. And this is worked mathematically by subtracting the heat content of the products minus that of the reactants. Simply heat content of reactants from heat content of products. Given that the enthalpy for reactants is H1. Now, for instance, if enthalpy for the reactants is H1, and that for the products is H2. Then enthalpy change, which is delta H, is equals to H2 minus H1. That is enthalpy for the reactants subtracted from that for the products.